Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name's Courtney and today we are going to do, wait for it, my July wrap-up. Now I know I haven't done an actual wrap-up in like, I don't know, a few months. That's because last month and May and a lot of the months before that, a lot of the books that I read I had already talked about in vlogs, and so that was feeling kind of redundant to me. But in the month of July I didn't get the chance, because of travel and such, I didn't really get the chance to talk about some of the books that I read. Some of them were, and I'll make note of which ones I've already talked about, but I have a stack of books here that I read in July, and I just kind of feel like talking about them because I had some really good reads that I haven't really delved into on this channel really yet. So the very first book that I read in July was Unwanted by Mia Sheridan. Now I did talk about this one in my, like when I came back from my RV trip, I did like a catch-up video. And I talked about this one in there. This one I did read like at the end of June into July, but I'm still counting it as the first read of July. This one was amazing. What did I rate this? I am so bad at remembering ratings, guys. I think I have my handy dandy reading journal here. I rated it 4.5 stars. I knew it wasn't quite a 5 stars, but I rated it like a high 4. I really love this. Actually, before we get into that, let's go over some stats for the month. So in the month of July, I read a total of 10 books and I had an average rating of 4 stars. I read about 4,583 pages, give or take. 5 of those 10 I read physically, 5 of them were ebooks that I read on my Kindle. Genre breakdown, 5 were fantasy, 5 were romance. It was very symmetrically, I don't think that's a word. It was very symmetrical in the way that it was split down the middle between fantasy and romance, between physical and Kindle books. So that kind of feels satisfying. One of those fantasy books was a YA. So yeah, I am now at 76 out of 80 for my yearly reading goal. Let's get back into the actual book reviews. As I said, Unwanted by Mia Sheridan. I absolutely loved this. This made me cry. This was so different and unique from most of the things I've read because this follows wilderness guide Harper Ward, who she lives in Montana. I chose this book because it was set in Montana and I was traveling to Montana, so I thought, hello, that would be awesome. It really did kind of make me feel more immersed in the setting of this book. Montana is absolutely beautiful. I cannot wait to go back one day. I just felt really immersed in this book. This follows Harper Ward. She is asked, she's kind of like a wilderness guide. She's asked to help on this case of these murders, right? Their only suspect is this guy who lives out in the middle of the woods. Like, he lives in this little cabin. He's very secluded, very isolated, mysterious. You can tell he's kind of been raised completely away from civilization, so he's very mysterious. But as the back says, the more she learns about him, the more like intrigued she becomes, and her relationship development with this man out in the woods is so sweet and tender and unexpected. And I just loved all of the twists and turns of figuring out the mystery as we figured out more and more about the suspicious deaths that happened. We also find out more about Harper's past and kind of why she is the way she is. And this book blew me away. I am obsessed, and I think book 2, Unnatural, in this interconnected romance standalone world, comes out this month. So I am very excited. I will be picking that one up because I'm excited. So yeah, that was the first book of this month. I then proceeded to read, I don't have a physical copy of it, I'll put it here. I read Direbound by Sable Sorensen, which is a romantasy involving direwolves. And this, let me tell you, was so fun and fast-paced. It follows, I don't have anything in front of me to like go off of, so I don't ever remember the main characters' names, guys. But the FMC in that basically she ends up getting thrust into these trials where she has to ascend this mountain and like claim a direwolf basically so that she can find her little sister who has been taken. This is something that's been happening in her village a lot. Children are getting taken. They don't know why. So she joins the army basically to find her sister so she can get to the front lines and have more power to find her sister. But little does she know that people who are signing up to be soldiers at that time are being thrust into these trials so that they can claim a direwolf. So this sparks a whole thing. Obviously there is some romance. It's good tension, good enemies to lovers, but yeah, I'll leave it at that because I think that one is a fun one to go into blind. But that one I also talked about in my catching up from my trip video. So if you want more of my like in the moment thoughts, more coherent thoughts, then I would go watch that video. I will try to link all of the previous videos that I mentioned in the description below. Yeah, that was Direbound. And then the third book I picked up right after my trip was Till Summer Do Us Part by Megan Quinn. I'm obsessed with these edges and this cover. And this was so like silly, goofy, really just outrageous romance. So if you were in the mood for like a true summery rom-com that's just very silly, goofy, then I do recommend this. I believe I ended up giving this like 3.5 stars. I should be more prepared when I do this, guys. Don't know what's up with that. Yeah, I gave this a 3.5 stars. I wasn't like completely connected, I feel like, to the main characters, and I almost feel like it was so outrageous that it kind of was like taking me out of the story. But again, I think if you're in the mood for that and you know going into it what you're getting into, I think that you might have fun. For me personally, this just wasn't my absolute favorite book. This follows Scotty Price. She started a new job, but all of the Brads and Chads in her office are, everyone's married, right? It's like a cult where everyone is married, and if you're not married, you're kind of like out of the club. And so Scotty feels that in order to be part of the in crowd, that she has to lie and pretend that she's married because she's recently divorced, I believe. I think she's recently divorced or like out of a relationship, but basically she lies to her entire workforce, all her coworkers, her boss, and she says that she's married and that she's in an unhappy marriage, right? And so little does she know that her boss's husband actually is like a therapist and runs this retreat every summer where it brings couples together in like a therapy camp type of setting. And so of course she gets entangled in this. The guy that she asks to be her fake husband he's a millionaire, but he's kind of like out of work right now because he sold his like company or his app, and he's obsessed with improv and like improving his improv skills. So of course he immediately says yes to this opportunity to fake being Scotty's husband and go to this summer camp. So the idea behind like the meet cute and what brings them together is obviously just silly and ridiculous, which was kind of fun. I don't know, I kind of do like camp settings. The therapist guy is wacky and out there. All the things that they end up getting into are silly, but I don't know. As the book progressed, I think it got better and I became a little more connected to the characters. I just wasn't fully bought in, again, I think because of how outrageous it was. But yeah, 3.5 stars for this one. Meh, you know, one of those ones. And then after that, what did I pick up right after that? Hold on. The book I read right after that, I'm not gonna hold up a physical copy because it's all the way at the bottom of my stack here, and I don't feel like messing with that. But the next book I read after Till Summer Do Us Part was Zodiac Academy number 8, Sorrow and Starlight. So I did make a little bit more progress in the Zodiac Academy series. I now only have book 9 left, and if you know anything about Zodiac Academy, it is long. It's very long towards the end of the series. I personally feel like it gets a little bit drawn out, a little bit repetitive, and so I have to really space out these books. So I don't know when I'll get to number 9. But number 8, again, can't tell you much because we're so far in the series, but it follows Tori and Darcy Vega, who are the like long lost princesses of this Fae kingdom of Solaria. They get taken in book 1 from the human worlds. They get asked basically, hey, you want to come claim your birthright in Solaria? You happen to be Fae princesses, but you'll have to go to this school. You've already been accepted. So it's like a magical school. There's magic training. It's elemental magic, kind of tied with astrology and fate and all that. And it's very fun. It's very addicting, especially in the beginning of the series, and you do become very attached to the characters, but it is wacky. Just know that it's very wacky. And also, it's considered bully romance. The first one definitely has those vibes. The writing's not like scholarly or like, it's not like the best writing ever, but like you almost don't care because it's so addictive. I'll just leave it at that. But book 8, what did I rate it? I rated Sorrow and Starlight also with 3.5 stars. In the beginning of the series, I think like book 1 was like 3 stars for me, and then they started to go up and up and up. And then I think Shadow Princess, which is what, number 4? I think number like 4 and 5 or somewhere in there, I started rating them 5 stars because I was obsessed. And then again, they started to get a little bit repetitive, a little bit long. And so then my ratings have kind of started to dwindle down again. But that's not to say that I don't enjoy them. Like, I always enjoy being in that world. It's just, I don't know, I just feel like I'm kind of over it, sadly. But there are a few things and a few different character arcs that are keeping me reading the series. Like obviously I'm eventually going to read book 9 to round that series out, and it'll be really satisfying to say that I finished a 9-book series. After that, I picked up One Golden Summer, and these ones I read in another vlog. I can't remember which one. I'll try to put it here if I remember. If editing Courtney remembers, put it here. The next book I picked up was One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. Now, the only other book I've ever read by Carly Fortune was Meet Me by the Lake years ago. I didn't love that one. I think I gave it like 3 stars. I don't know. I just didn't connect with that one. But this one was everything. I rated this 5 freaking stars. This was incredible. This was moving. This was completely immersive. Like when I think summer books, I'm gonna think of this one, because this is set at a lake. It's called Barry's Bay. It's in Canada, and just the nostalgia that's put into this book and the summery vibes, the setting, all of it, you just feel like you're actually there. You feel like it's a movie in your head. And I love when an author can do that, when the words can just jump right off the page and create a world that you feel like you're actually in. And that was what this was. This follows Alice. She spent a summer at her grandmother's cottage in Barry's Bay the summer when she was 17. And she started to kind of get into photography. Well, she takes this one photo of these kids out on a boat just having the time of their life, and that kind of sets the trajectory for her entire career of like photography, sparks her passion, makes her career take off, all of those things. But little does she know, one of the men, then boys, who was in that boat is Charlie Florrick, who still has like his house on Barry's Bay. He's there for the summer. Alice is taking her grandmother there in the current timeline to try to cheer her up, and she's also kind of like in a work rut, right? So you have the work rut, you have the grandmother who's recently injured. She's trying to cheer her up, and she's like, Grandma, why don't we go spend the summer at Barry's Bay at the cottage? And she's like, yes, that sounds great. So they go there, and of course Charlie, oh my god, Charlie is like the flirtiest guy ever, but yet he's one of those people who kind of uses that as a mask for what's going on underneath. He's got some issues that he's struggling through, some things that really hold him back in life. I just loved him so much. He was amazing. Their chemistry, their banter was like flying. It was coming off the page. The sparks were flying off the page. I could palpably feel the tension, and I love a book that can do that. But yeah, I loved all of the characters in this. I loved the relationship that Charlie develops with Alice's grandmother. I loved seeing the grandmother kind of come to terms with different things in her life and reconnect with people. And this book just goes through so much. There's grief, there's so many real life things, and it makes it hit really hard. The entire overarching feeling of this book is joy and hope, and it's everything. This made me cry, this made me laugh. I was absolutely entranced by this book, so I highly recommend. 5 stars. And now I think I definitely need to go back and read Every Summer After, which is the one that's connected to this, because that one follows Charlie's younger brother, who you see him and his wife in this book. So that's that one. Obsessed. That was one of my top 2 books of the month of July. And then after we read One Golden Summer, I picked up Delicate Escape by Catherine Cowles, which is book 2 in the Sparrow Falls series. And this one follows Shepard Coulson, who's like the charming kind of outgoing man in this family. This series follows this family of, there's many kids in this family, and a lot of them are like adopted. So this one follows Shep and Thea. I believe her name is Thea, right? Thea is very mysterious. Everyone in the town who gets closer to her can tell that like she has something in her past that keeps her completely closed off. She doesn't have an email address. She doesn't give out her address, her phone number. Like she's in hiding basically. And Shep makes it his mission to figure out why and to kind of get under her defenses. He feels very protective towards her, which I love. I love that trope of like damsel in distress, and then the MMC feels protective of her. Love that. Love the small town vibes of this series, but the unique thing about this series is that it's not just small town, you also have a mystery element that you're like solving with them in every book. This one, the mystery is involving Thea and what's going on with her past, and it was just so fun. These books are very, very easy to read and to fly through. I always hesitate to say palette cleanser because I feel like that diminishes kind of like how fun the book is. So I would say this is a great palette cleanser, but it's also just a really fun, great story, and I genuinely love this series and being in this world, so I can't wait to read book 3, which is Broken Harbor. I have it on my TBR cart over here. But yeah, this one, I think I rated this one 3.5 stars. So far the series in my mind is like a high 3-star, almost 4-star rating, because I'm not completely, don't have that like 5-star feeling yet, but I think possibly later on in the series I potentially could. I also rated this one 3.5. I have a lot of 3.5-star ratings in the month of July, but I still really enjoy this. I really recommend this series. It's so fun. If you love small town romance, if you love that kind of really big found family feeling, kind of like the feeling you get with like Elsie Silver's Chestnut Spring series, where it's just this really big family, found family, some of them are adopted, that kind of a thing, then I recommend this series a lot. Anyway, that was that one. Next, went into Bane. Did I read Delicate Escape in that other vlog too? Guys, I genuinely can't remember. I don't know. Like I said, I'm gonna try to put all the vlogs that are related to these books in the description below. The next book we picked up was Bane by Alex Astor. This is book 2 of the Lightlark trilogy. Is it a trilogy or is it gonna be more? I think I've heard that after Skyshade there is gonna be possibly another one. Don't quote me on this. We'll just say the Lightlark series. This is book 2, and this series follows Isla Crown, who, I can't really give away anything obviously for the second book, but Isla Crown goes to Lightlark because every 100 years they have to go and participate in these trials. Again, you have trials to try to break the curses that are upon everyone in this land, right? And every type of magic, whether you're a wildling, a sunling, a moonling, whatever your power is, the curse targets that group, that faction differently. And so Isla, being a wildling, their curse is that they like eat the hearts of men, or like they can only eat hearts or something. I don't quite remember. Guys, my memory is actually concerning. It's concerning. But anyway, all I know is that the vibes of the series are fun. There is a love triangle. I don't want to say like what team I'm on, but like there's definitely a team that I'm on at this point. For a while I was like, oh my god, I really like both of them. But my heart is being tugged in one direction. If you've read these, I would love to know like what team you're on, Oro or Grimm. Like I said, I'm on a certain team at this point. But I have heard that this series really drags out the love triangle, so if that's not like your thing, maybe skip this one. But this is a really delightful YA fantasy series with elemental magic, lots of twists and turns. It's easy and fast to read. Like, I feel like there's so much going on at all times so far in the series that, yeah, you just fly right through it. And I love that about this series. It makes for a really satisfying feeling read. But yeah, I really like the plot of these books. I personally am liking the love triangle, thus far at least. I really like Isla. I like the imagery of this island and what's going on. There's like these dark forces, right? Some of the powers that be in this book are dark and some of them are light. So I love that juxtaposition in fantasy book. I feel like I'm saying a whole lot of nothing, but just know, I think I rated this one 4 stars, 4.5 stars maybe? I don't know, I gave it a pretty good rating because I genuinely did enjoy it. Yeah, I rated this one 4.5 stars, so almost 5 stars. I didn't quite get the 5-star feeling, but it was still a great time, so highly recommend. I then picked up Mistakes We Never Made by Hannah Brown. Now, the reason I picked this one up, like I said in previous videos, was because Hannah Brown was on The Bachelorette. Do you remember her? So I was really intrigued. I was like, oh, Hannah Brown wrote a book. That's cool. And then I read the synopsis. I read the first page, plus this really summary cover. I was like, I'm gonna read this. This follows Emma Townsend, who has had basically her whole life a situationship, kind of an on and off thing, with this guy named Finn Hughes, and everything about their relationship, like one word that sums up their relationship is almost. They almost kissed this one time, then they almost hooked up this other time, they were almost together, but things kept getting in the way, the universe kept getting in the way. Miscommunication came in there and kept them apart at multiple times. So again, if you don't like miscommunication in books, you might not like this one. I think I gave this one a 3-star, just like a flat 3 stars. It wasn't my favorite. I didn't really connect to the characters. I thought the plot was fun. You basically have this like runaway bride situation, not the main female character, but like her best friend. You have this runaway bride situation. They're there for this wedding, and then her and Finn, who also happens to be friends with the runaway bride, have to kind of come together to chase after The Runaway Bride, right? So you have that whole like road trip scenario, The Runaway Bride, like you have all of those more outrageous rom-com qualities to this book. So I did think that was fun. But again, I just didn't really connect to these main characters, and more importantly, I didn't really super connect to their romance. I think because of all the miscommunication and everything that kept them apart in the past, I had a hard time getting over that and believing that they could also just like get over that, because obviously through this entire book they are working on their relationship. Even when they don't know it, they're mending their friendship, they're mending their relationship, and then the main character eventually like has these moments, these realizations, and they start communicating better. And I don't know what it is about this book. I just didn't connect that much. So I gave it a 3 stars. I think if you're interested, you should read it for yourself and see what you think for yourself. I'm not gonna not recommend the book, but I don't think it was for me. So that's that one. That's all I'm gonna say on that one. Then we read my favorite book of the entire month, which is The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy by Bridget Knightley. This, I don't know what I was expecting out of this, because I heard it was a fantasy rom-com, and those are always a little bit iffy for me. Also, hopefully you've been able to hear me this whole time. I just realized my door is open, and as usual, laundry was going. So if the sound has been annoying, I'm so sorry. Anyway, this was amazing. This was a 5 stars, and let me tell you why. This was fantasy romance, but it wasn't like outrageous or over the top like a lot of fantasy rom-coms tend to be. The humor was, to me, perfect. It was hilarious. It was exactly my kind of humor. This follows a healer and an assassin, and the assassin, Osric, he's found that he has like this magic degeneration happening within him, and the only person that can possibly help him is Ariane. But the problem is they are completely opposite. They're from completely different magic factions, where again she is like a healer, so she's from like the light paths, and then he's an assassin, so he's part of the what's called the Duskin paths. So again, you have light versus dark, enemies to lovers. But their banter is hilarious. The little adventures that they go on to try to heal Osric are hilarious. The names of places, the familiars, they have familiars that are called like Diafuls, and it explains it in the very beginning what a Diaful is. To me, I'm just gonna call it a familiar because that's basically what it is. But it says, from Old English, Diaful, or a devil, animal familiars used for communication, companionship, and counsel. Well, anyway, their different familiars show up as these really funky creatures, and they're used to communicate between each other. I thought that was great. It's so hard for me to like articulate what I loved about this, and that always happens to me with 5-star reads. I love it so much that I can't even form words about it. But the feelings I got from this, the vibe of this, it was so unique. It was so funny. The romance kept me on my toes, and it's such a slow burn, by the way, that by the end I'm like, come on. And now we don't get book 2 for like a year. So that's unfortunate, because I genuinely am like sick to my stomach that I don't have book 2. That's how much I loved this. Like I said, the plot was great. Everything was great. Even like the chapter headings were hilarious. Like chapter 1 is literally called Irresistible Bastard Meets Immovable Bitch. Hilarious. I loved Osric. He was great. He's like kind of cocky almost, but like in a funny way. And they keep denying throughout this entire book, they're just denying their attraction towards each other, their feelings for each other. They're like, there's no way I could love this person who is diametrically the opposite of the things that I usually value and the things that I like. That's like the best kind of romance, in my opinion, is you just get the best tension, best banter when they're both like, we can't do this, right? I loved this, guys. I don't know what to say. I also felt like the medical part of this, because she's like a healer, the actual medical terminology and the research that went behind that seemed to be really well done. And the writing style is so good. It's genius. I wouldn't say it's like flowery or lush, but it reads like very smart and very witty. And I just loved every second of this. I think I have to leave it at that, because obviously I am not articulating anything well right now. This was a 10 out of 10. I genuinely need book 2 now. I'll be right back. I have to go switch my laundry over. Okay, I am back. Laundry is settled. Door is closed. Again, hopefully the sound wasn't atrocious. The last book that I read in July was Beautiful Things by Emily Rath. Look how beautiful this is, by the way. Are you kidding? This one got me, not just because the cover, but I read the back and it said that this is a Why Choose Regency romance. So think like Bridgerton, but like more spicy, and Why Choose. I was sold. I was like, okay, that's definitely very different from anything that I have on my TBR, so let's give it a try. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. I flew through it. I wasn't sure at first because sometimes like Regency era can kind of like trip me up and I just sometimes don't read it as fast. But I genuinely loved this one. It was like, for me, the definition of guilty pleasure. Like, it wasn't serious. Again, there was definitely some like outlandish aspects, but I found it to be so fun. So I was just immersed. I loved the Regency era aspect of this, mixed with the spicier vibe of like her and these three men. I loved the three men. We have some beautiful character art here. So we have Burke, and then we have James over here, who's like a prince guy, a lordling guy, and then we have this guy who's in the Navy, Lieutenant Renly. And I loved all three of them. They were great. Our main character was a little bit insufferable sometimes. It was giving like I'm not like other girls, so just like bear that in mind, but it wasn't enough to put me off this book or my enjoyment of it. I just kind of ignored those parts that were annoying me, and I just still had a great time. So I ended up rating this one 4 stars. I would give this a solid 4 stars because, like I said, I just devoured it. It held my attention the entire time. I just had so much fun and found it to be pretty unique from anything else I've really read. The closest thing I could relate this to would be Bridgerton. I haven't actually read the Bridgerton series though. I've only watched the show. So I do recommend this one if you like spicy books and you also like Regency. I think you'd have a fun time with this. But yeah, just keep in mind that there are some pretty outrageous things happening here, which you kind of have to have in order to keep it interesting. Otherwise, I feel like, you know, the way that they speak and dress and what they spend their days with can kind of get monotonous and boring if you don't have these like outrageous plot things happening. And then the end did end in like a twist that I was kind of was expecting part of it, but then part of it I wasn't. So I am excited, really excited to read the second installment. This is called the Second Sons series, and this is book 1, and I can't wait to read the second one. So yeah, that is all of the books that I read in the month of July. I would love to know what you guys read in July. Have you read any of these? What were your thoughts on them? Did you like them? Did you not like them? Did we have any that we felt similar on? I would love to know. Also, if you have any recommendations of books that like feel like this one, I would love to know that as well. Something about the fantasy rom-com-ness of this one and the way that it was written was just like my perfect book. I don't know, I'm obsessed. So if you have any recommendations of, you know, a book that like feels like this one, I would love to know. But yeah, anyways, that's the end of this video. If you've watched to this point, I would love it if you could leave the flower emoji for beautiful things. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting. I love you guys, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!